Jeff Bezos, worth over $100 billion, drives this piece of shit, which makes me wonder.
What's with the Honda?
When you can buy any other car you could possibly want, why on earth stick with a 1997 Honda Accord? You have to be really nostalgic for the 90s to be that rich, but still drive around in a car that screams average. So Jeff, what's going on? Are you okay? Do you know how much money your company makes? If Bezos was a supervillain, his Honda would be a pretty decent disguise. But if he's not, and he's really just a guy with lots of money, then there must be something else. After all, when you can have this, why drive this? What's your reason, Jeff?
This is a perfectly good car.
That may be true, but so is this, and this, and this.
Like in Hypersport? $3.4 million, 0 to 60 in less than 3 seconds.
Which Bezos apparently also owns. But it turns out his Honda may be more than just a reliable car for him. You see, frugality is one of Amazon's core beliefs. They say that constraints breed resourcefulness, self-sufficiency, and invention. In fact, for years, Jeff Bezos used a recycled wooden door as his desk and drove a 1987 Chevy Trailblazer before upgrading to his Accord. And I have to say, maybe there's something to this idea that constraint breeds invention, because it turns out several other billionaires also drive surprisingly cheap cars. Take another of the world's richest men, Mark Zuckerberg, and his Volkswagen Golf GTI. Now, there's nothing wrong with this car. It looks comfortable for an average Joe. But put a billionaire behind the wheel and something starts to look a little out of place. But it fits in with Mark's idea of living simply.
I really want to clear my life to make it so that I have to make as few decisions as possible.
From his wardrobe,
You don't look like you're buying really expensive clothes.
which I would argue lacks variety, to his breakfast, to his cars, and one cheap car isn't enough for him. He's also been known to ride in the very humble Acura TSX, essentially a poor man's luxury car. But Mark, you're not poor. But if you really want to see a billionaire who lived like he's poor, no one did it better than Ingvar Kamprad. For the guy who created Ikea, you've really got to hand it to him. He took the company's cheapness to heart with his 1993 Volvo 240. I wonder if he included that car in his will alongside his $58 billion fortune when he sadly passed away in 2018. Ingvar was all about frugality, even shopping for his clothes at flea markets. Maybe it's the fact that he grew up during the Depression, or maybe it's simply because he's always done things differently, like starting his own company when he was just 17 years old. Whatever the case, you have to admit that considering Ikea's reputation as a place for cheap throwaway furniture, it's a bit ironic that Ingvar held on to his Volvo for so long. He had this thing for nearly 2 decades. But I guess even billionaires can get attached to a car, no matter how cheap it is. Warren Buffett's another guy who falls into that category. For years, his favourite ride was definitely not what you'd expect a billionaire to roll up in. In Buffett's case, it was a 2006 Cadillac DTS, a car that's old enough that one of its main selling points was an iPod adapter. Now, as a used car, Buffett's Caddy would have only been worth about $12,000. But I'll come back to how much it actually went for at auction in a second. Warren Buffett, despite being the 5th richest man in the world, isn't turned off by the word cheap. In fact, it seems like one of his favourite spots to drive to in his Caddy was the McDonald's drive-thru. He loves McDonald's so much that he even made it part of his daily routine.
When I'm not feeling quite so prosperous, I might go with the 261, which is 2 sausage patties, and then I put them together.
Spoken like a guy who's been thinking about money his whole life, which Buffett apparently has. He bought his first stock when he was only 11 years old, still in elementary school. And talking of good investments, his Cadillac turned out to be a great one too. When he eventually auctioned off the car, it sold for $122,500. He donated all of that money to charity. So it turns out that all of these billionaires have at least two things in common: lots of money and dirt cheap cars. Is there a connection between the two? I don't think so. But if there is, boy, I'm about to get very rich very soon. And hey, if you're interested in seeing how some mega rich people who aren't afraid to splash their cash actually live, then check out this video next.